Hello and welcome to anyone new to my channel. I cover audio and video technology. Today we're going to be looking at this. It's a Parkside Inspection Camera. So this is a device sold by Lidl in the UK, and it allows us to see into awkward spaces. Let's unbox it and look at the specifications and what it can do and try it out, give it some challenging tasks. Let's get stuck in. So as it suggests, it can be used for inspecting small hollow spaces, pipes, and hard to reach areas. It can take photos, has a digital zoom, well that's going to be a little bit limited. It includes batteries because it's not rechargeable. It has its own screen, so it's not like we have to connect it to a phone. Ideal for repairs and maintenance in your house, car and more. We will try some different scenarios for it, including a car. And I understand that it's waterproof, so we can use it in drains and that sort of thing. But you shouldn't submerge it in oil, so a little bit of care. Right, it comes with some attachments. I've looked at the instructions, or at least for the previous version. I'm not sure how useful they are. A cable for connecting it to a computer so you can take the photos off. AA batteries, and this is the camera itself connects to the control unit. It has a set of buttons which I think, looking at the instructions, are a little bit cryptically labelled. So I might actually print out labels which are a little bit clearer to stick on here. Right, let's unbox it. Clearly it comes in a carry case, which is a good idea. So let's unbox it. So we have a hard carry case. The main unit, the long camera, which is quite a rigid sort of flexy thing. So I guess that's good from the point of view of you know it's going to stay pointing where you wanted it to point. But for some things you might find it a little tricky to get it into the shape you want. There's LEDs there for illuminating your subject. So it's a C-type connector, which I prefer. They tend to be more robust and you don't have to worry about which way around to plug them in. Some of the ancillary tools there. Four batteries, which may not be the best. We might like to change them for something better later. Right, so the battery hatch is designed with a strap you put under the batteries so you can pull them out. And it all seems quite rugged, this. Let's pop the batteries in. Well, it might be a bit petty, but really these batteries are quite hard to unwrap. It's pretty clear which way around they go. So this part is not in any way liquid resistant, so there's no seal on that edge. We have a display film to peel off. Instructions are here. I've looked online to read the instructions ahead of time, and I could only find the PKI 2.8B1 instructions online. I'm not sure what the difference is going to be. Right, we need to attach the camera unit. There's a spigot there. Which lines up with the top, and then we do this up. So that's a nice secure connection. That actually feels like real quality stuff, that does. Right, they've put on the instructions, they've put numbers telling you what the various functions are, but they've not labelled them on here, which is just unhelpful. So you kind of need to refer across to that page to work out what the buttons do. Yeah, this really could have been much better labelled. Hopefully it'll be abundantly obvious. First thing to do, switch it on, and I believe you press the power button for 3 seconds. Okay, it booted quickly, and straight away we have the camera in operation. We'll need to switch the lights on. There's a button here for the lights, I believe. There we go. They're not that bright, but hopefully in a confined space they will be useful. And I believe you can alter the brightness. Right, so it steps through brightness levels and shows it on the display. So minimum brightness and then increasing. Now focus, of course, is going to be limited in this. It's going to be a fixed focus or fairly short focus, because obviously you won't be looking at distant objects with an item like this. So it's probably set to fairly short focus. We can press this button to take a photo of the inside of the case in this case, and I believe it's done that. Next one is playback, so we can see the photo that we have just taken. I believe press and hold it and it will offer us the option to delete it. Okay, what it didn't seem to do is give you an option. It didn't say, oh, would you like to delete this photo? It just deleted it. So you need to be a little bit careful with that. There's also a display brightness, button number 7. So that'll be this one, another one where you step through it. I've got back to this screen where it says 0% and I don't know how to exit that. Oh yeah. So display brightness. Okay, that steps through as well. Again with the bar there, let's show you that. Imagine for outdoor use, if you're working on a car outdoors or something, you will want that fairly bright. Now this button, each of the buttons, if you press it and hold it, gives you the secondary function. So in this case you can press a button to take it to black and white, I believe it is. No, that's zoom. Okay, that's zoom, which of course won't improve the resolution of any image it takes. It's only useful if you're using this display and you need to see in more detail without peering into the small display. So that's zooming in. Right, and if you press and hold it, it will switch to black and white, which could be useful for some shots, giving you a little bit more clarity. Press and hold it again, I think it'll switch to colour. Yeah, good. Alright, let's try working in some confined spaces. We'll set an artificial one up initially. Right, I have a drawer here with the capacitor in the back, dated 8507. I'm going to put that drawer in so there's only a very small gap at the front, and let's see if we can read the date code on that capacitor. So here's the difficult space we've given ourselves to work in. Well, yes, we do have access to that. We can actually read the date code on the bottom of that capacitor. We can read that 8507 there, but it's a little difficult. It would be really nice if there was some control that allowed us to rotate it. I guess that's just not possible. But the camera can very quickly become orientated in some random plane, and it's can be rather hard to understand what you're seeing. Definitely visible, but the angles are all a little bit strange. So that's just an inherent problem, I think, with this kind of camera, that you have to understand that things are not necessarily the way round that your mind expects them to be. Certainly works though, doesn't it? Let's see how close we can get to that before it becomes a blur. Getting closer and closer. Right, too close. Right, so I'm probably just a few millimeters away now, and back off and it becomes clearer. Okay, that's the first demonstration. I think it did that quite well. Let's just adjust the brightness levels. So I'm just altering the LED brightness down to 0. Well, you can't see anything then. It has obviously an auto brightness, an auto exposure system, so once it's got enough light to see, it doesn't make any difference if you increase the light level. But in some spaces, there won't be as much reflected light as we're getting here, and you will need to use that higher intensity lighting, I'm sure. Having been running that for some minutes, I can tell you that the camera head gets fairly warm. Don't think that would matter in many cases, but there might be a few situations where you don't want heat, so you need to be aware of that. Now, of course, one consideration here is a kind of thing you're going to be looking at. For example, if we were to put this into a car engine, we could see down onto the piston and maybe see a little bit around if there's any scoring in the cylinder. But there's no way, I don't believe, you're going to be able to get that in and around to look at the valves. Well, we could have a go later, but I really don't think we'll see the valves because the entrance to the cylinder where the spark plug is, there just won't be enough room to get this turned around to look back up again. So very unlikely that that will work, I think, but looking down into the piston should be good. But that's obviously not going to be the only use for this, is it? We're going to find lots of other uses. While we're looking at this capacitor, let's press the photograph button, take a photo of that. It'd be nice if it beeped or something to give you some more sort of feedback that you've taken a photo successfully. You don't really know, and yeah, a beep would be really good at that point, I think. Now, something that's really important here is that it only records stills. It doesn't do video. So for some applications it won't be very helpful, but for stills use, yeah, you can take the photo with this, or of course, if you're really desperate, I guess you could video this screen, but that's not going to give very good results, is it? Okay, which of these three cars would you like to see inside the engine? We have a 2010 Vauxhall Insignia diesel, a 1994 Toyota Celica GT, and a 1972 Hillman Avenger. Vote now. Okay, I'm glad most of you said the Hillman Avenger because that's much the easiest one to work on. So let's take out a spark plug and have a look inside there. Now, of course, I don't know where the engine is. It might well be that whichever one of these I take out, I may not get the best view, but let's take one out, or take several out, and have a look inside the cylinders. Right, I'm no motor mechanic and I don't like taking cars apart at all, so bear with me. Okay, one spark plug out, we can have a look in there. Okay, we'll start by switching this on. We'll take lots of photos as we go along here. Okay, we'll certainly need some more light, I think. It's very dark. Right. So now we can see the top of the piston. I think one of the problems is if you need to maneuver it around, this is so rigid, it can be a little bit hard to get it into different places. So if I wanted to see around the edges of the cylinder, it's not easy. Take some photos. Can I get some different parts of the cylinder? I'm probably, because of the angle I'm going in at, I must be looking at the back here. So could I get it so I can see the front edge? Maybe if I shape that a little bit round first. I keep on ending up seeing the same bit. Sort of manoeuvring it around to look at different parts. For your information, this engine's got about 25,000 miles on it, so it should be in fairly good order. Just trying to get to see right the way around the cylinder head the piston, and from where this piston is, I cannot see the whole thing. I could rotate the engine a bit and get the piston further down and see a bit more, but that might not be appropriate depending on what it is I'm looking for. I keep looking at the same part. So there is a weakness, I think. You just don't get the flexibility that you might imagine. You might just see one of these things and think it's a solution to everything. You can see inside your engine and off you go, but actually the visibility is very limited by how manoeuvrable the camera lens is. As for seeing the valves at the top, no, absolutely no chance whatsoever. No. So really, your view inside that engine is quite limited. If you wanted to look for a particular problem that you might have, such as burning oil or something like that, I think you'd finish up with pretty inconclusive results from that. Can we see anything inside the rocker cover? Of course, normally looking in here isn't such a big deal on this kind of engine. You could just take the rocker cover off. You'd only have to replace a gasket. But on some engines that might be a bigger task. So let's go along here, take some photos as we go. Well, this is where it can come in really useful, because you can get to see a long way along here. And I remember I once had a Mark II Vauxhall Cavalier, and those things had chocolate camshafts. Whether there was enough room to run something like this along the length, though, of the rocker cover, I don't know, or the cam cover, but there's some chance you'd be able to see a little bit more than just by peering through the oil filler. Kind of a little bit wary of ramming this in and doing damage, but in general, yes, you can get, when you've got something like that where you've got a long length to go through, it seems to work fairly well. But when you're in the confines of a cylinder, no, it doesn't work so well at all. Let's get the oil off this, because it does specifically say that though it's waterproof, it's not oil proof. Now, I'm not sure why you'd want to, but let's take a look in the radiator. Can we see through the quite green coolant? So I'm operating it underwater now. I'm not sure you can really glean anything from the shot you could see in there, because you can't get far enough away from the filler to actually see anything that you wouldn't have been able to see anyway. Okay, I think we'll try one more piston, see if we can get a better view. And we're met with the same problem. We just can't get around to look at the whole of the top of the piston and looking at the cylinder for scoring. So if you had a major problem, maybe you'd see it, but if you're looking for something subtle, I don't think you would. Okay, let's just see if the car still works after being poked about with. Right, let's try it all out, make sure it still works. Of course it will. It's a Hillman Avenger. Having done our shots, one of the things I wanted to do was to see how easy it is to pack away this camera head. So it says arrow to remove. This really does feel very military grade, this bit. This is well made, this bit. That didn't go so well, because I started at this end, I finished up in a place where I'd have to put this around a corner, and of course it won't do that. So I guess the knack is to start a bit further along. It means doing the whole process again. Okay, that worked. They've supplied some tools, and the idea is that you can fit these to the end of the sensor to assist with picking things up with these hooks. There's also a magnet, so if you're trying to fish something out of somewhere, you could use the magnet. So fit the magnet on the end, and that would assist you digging something out of a tight space. Okay, that's potentially useful. And the one that I was thinking of here, and I wish I'd tried earlier, would be this tiny mirror. So with the mirror, would you be able to see the engine valves? Fit the barbed hook of the tools in the opening at the end of the gooseneck, just below the camera head. Aha, there's a tiny hole here. That's what you're supposed to mount the tools into. So you mount it like that, and then put the collar over the top. And you see how it's offset so that you would, otherwise you'd be looking straight back at the camera. Okay, well let's give that a whirl. I'm not going to take the engine apart again, but let's see if you think there's any chance that that would give us a view of valves in a car. So we're getting a forward and reverse facing view there. So this is the forward view, and that's the rear facing view from the camera, from the mirror. Take a shot of that. Right, I think there is a chance that you would get some kind of shot of at least part of the valve gear, but you're going to have the same problem that we had with positioning this around the piston. You're going to get whatever shot you get, and you really haven't got enough wiggle room to perhaps see both valves or all the valve seats, but you might see just a little bit of some of the top of the cylinder head. Right, let's put the tools carefully back in this packet, and I suppose this little cover here does give you a fighting chance of not losing all this stuff. So the tools are more useful than I thought they were going to be. Certainly if you've dropped something somewhere really inaccessible, this gives you a chance of seeing it and pulling it back. Right, having done all that, let's pull some of the photos off this onto a PC. Right, reasonably short, but feels like decent quality USB-C cable. Okay, it didn't work the first time, but it's worked now. And it appears as a USB drive with DSIM, which is digital camera, and they're all the photos we've taken today. Rather than copy them, we'll actually move them to a location. Right, looking at the picture resolution, it's extraordinarily low at 640 by 480 pixels. So that's obviously because they've had to use such a small pickup sensor. So resolution really sadly lacking, but let's have a look and see if we can make good sense of some of the images. I suppose looking at these, the resolution is adequate just about for what you're trying to do, because it's all about actually managing to focus and get the camera in the right place. Absolute resolution is probably not desperately important in this case. And where it has been in focus, the images are reasonably good. Okay, for completeness, I will go back and try to get a shot of some of the valve assembly on the Hillman Avenger. Let's come back with some photos from that. the shots we got with the mirror in place were, well, not really usable. I think you need to be very careful as well, because there's a hazard. If you allow, as has happened here, that little pin to fall out of its place there, there's a risk that when you take this out of the engine, that might happen, and that'll fall in, and now you've got a problem. So a bit of care when doing this, that that stays in place. It's going to be a little fiddly set up. You really don't want that to fall in. So what you do, put that on first, then fit this. And hopefully that will stay on. And I guess that won't fall off. Well, it shouldn't fall off, but it just did. So there is a hazard that that could pop off. One thing I noticed when I was taking photos with this, you need to make sure the mirror is extremely clean before you start. Otherwise you'll get big reflections from the lights here, completely mar the shot. But anyway, attempting to take photos of valves was, what can we say, a bit of a fail. It just didn't work. You can see reflections from this bar that holds the mirror. You can see that on occasions, but I couldn't really see anything else that was meaningful in the shot at all, and certainly couldn't line it up with the engine valves. So I'm afraid if you were buying this because you wanted to inspect car engines in detail, you were going to find that it's not the right tool for the job. And there may not be any tool that does really let you do that, but this certainly won't. Here it is now. I've put some labels on so I can see what I'm doing, and that helps a bit actually. So there is a rotate function. If you press and hold the brightness button, it will do rotate, and it will also do a mirror image. So that can be helpful to orientate yourself somewhat if you're looking at images that are the wrong way around. So there we have the Parkside Inspection Camera. It's not a bad product. In fact, it's really quite well made. It's just that you could expect it to do more than it can, and it might well be that all inspection cameras have that basic difficulty. So it's not a criticism really of this one, but if you're expecting to be able to see a great deal of detail in certain confined spaces, it just won't achieve that. Now, I do a lot of content on audio and video technology. I do repairs on equipment. I cover a lot of audio and video stuff. So if you're not already a subscriber, do watch the outro to this video and have a look at some of the things I do and see if those things might be of interest to you. I'll do a lot more content on audio and video technology in the near future. Bye for now.